I'm honored today to participate in the 4th Private Sector Conference on Sustainable and Inclusive Business. I take this early opportunity to thank the Dutch government and KEPSA Foundation for supporting this initiative and for the cordial relationship that the two governments have had for several years, as you've heard from His Excellency Ambassador Frank Maken. The Dutch approach to development cooperation is all about people's rights and opportunities, and letting everyone stand on their own feet and have opportunities to develop successful lives, which is reflected in the theme of this conference: circular economy, rethink business, change the story. I am reliably informed that this conference is built on the foundation of the last 3 SIB conferences, and that significant milestones have been achieved since the first conference. I wish to thank KEPSA for keeping the conversation on circular economy going and urge you to create voluntary targets to walk the talk. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, indeed the theme and the agenda of the conference captures the aspirations of the Kenyan government environment and climate change policies. As you are aware, the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, together with partners and stakeholders, spearheaded the development of the Green Economy Strategy and Implementation Plan. The strategy aims at transforming Kenya into an inclusive, green economy and sustainable development through promotion of economic resilience and resource efficiency, sustainable management of natural resources, development of sustainable infrastructure, and providing support for social inclusion. The government of Kenya has also taken international commitments under the Paris Accord for abatement of greenhouse gas emissions by 30% relative to business as usual scenario projection by the year 2030. This target was taken through our nationally determined contribution, popularly known as NDCs, which I'm sure you are all aware of. Adaptation action are also envisaged across all socioeconomic sectors to strengthen resilience to climate change. To take forward the foundation laid in the first National Climate Change Action Plan of 2013-2017 and implement provisions of the Paris Agreement and the Climate Change Act, the government of Kenya has developed and implementing the National Climate Change Action Plan 2018-2022. Kenya's nationally determined contribution is being implemented through the National Climate Change Action Plan 2018-2022. The National Climate Change Action Plan 2018-2022 identifies 7 climate change response priority areas, including disaster risk management, food and nutrition security, water and the blue economy, forestry, wildlife and tourism, health, sanitation and human settlement, manufacturing, energy, and transport. The priority areas focus on taking the country towards a low-carbon and climate-resilient development pathway. We are happy to report that private sector was fully represented in the development of the action plan and supporting technical reports. The plan identifies climate actions geared towards promoting green manufacturing, which includes resource use efficiency and sustainable production, as well as shift to a circular economy. Moving towards green manufacturing will require innovation and promotion of micro, small, and medium enterprises. The plan also recognizes that the private sector, national, county government, and citizens must work closely in order to achieve the overall goal of the plan. Despite challenges, some of you have made significant progress towards embracing sustainable production models in your business plans. We congratulate you and urge you to share your experiences with your colleagues in such forums. I am delighted to note that Kenya is a major player in the use of sustainable energy sources, with the government and private sector pursuing opportunities in geothermal, solar, and wind energy. Despite the significant progress made in renewable energy uptake, and achieving up to more than 60% access to energy, and having more than 70% grid-connected renewable energy, about 80% of our population is still dependent on solid fuels or biomass for cooking. Indoor air pollution is a leading killer in rural and urban homes. And nearly half of the world's population, as you are aware, still uses polluting fuels and technology to meet their most basic household energy needs. Part of Kenya's growth strategy must also involve bringing energy to all for its citizens, in line with the United Nations Sustainable Energy for All initiative and Sustainable Development Goal number 7. The private sector has a critical role to play in the shift to clean cooking. Strong opportunities for transforming clean cooking through innovation and technology development in the biomass energy sector exist. We urge the private sector to manufacture products, sell products, and provide services for clean cooking technologies and fuels at affordable prices. Clean cooking is closely tied to achieving our forestry conservation efforts. One of the biggest drivers for deforestation in Kenya is demand for timber and fuel wood. Forests are our natural capital and a critical asset, one that is seldom accounted for in the development process, despite the ecosystem services they provide to many livelihoods and businesses they support. 5 key forests regulate 75% of the country's renewable water supplies. As you are all aware, our forests are under threat from agricultural expansion, urban development and settlement, as well as wood harvesting. Kenya's forest land cover declined from 12% in the 60s during independence to 5.9% around 2010 and has slightly increased to 7.2%. As a result, Kenya is among countries of the world with a forest cover below the international minimum threshold of 10% of total landmass. To reverse the trend, the Constitution, which was promulgated in 2010, sets a target of achieving and maintaining a tree cover of at least 10% of the land area by 2030. The 10% tree cover target is also encapsulated in the Forest Conservation and Management Act of 2016 and supported by other legal instruments, including Agriculture Farm Forestry Rules of 2009, Environment Management and Coordination Act of 1999, and Climate Change Act, as well as the Land Act. These pieces of legislation take cognizance of the important role played by stakeholders, particularly local communities, private sector, and institutions in achieving the 10% tree cover. As you are all aware, His Excellency the President has passed several directives, which include fast-tracking the tree cover to 10% by 2022 instead of 2030, and also a directive on institutions to give at least 10% of their CSR towards the 10% tree cover initiative. The private sector has therefore a clear role to play in this sector and should support the government in this regard. A critical element of the green economy transition lies within cities. For example, untapped opportunities exist in energy efficient buildings and lighting and in the waste and transport sectors. According to a UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs report released in 2015, the Earth will be home to 9.7 billion people in 2050, an increase of 2.8 billion from 2010. The report further states that 2/3 of the world's population will reside in megacities and urban centers with over 10 million inhabitants. Nairobi is projected to be one of these megacities, with an estimated population of 14 million people by 2050. And these are statistics from the World Organization Prospect Survey. It is projected that more than 50% of Kenyans will be living in the urban areas by 2030. The 2030 horizon, as you are aware, has a special meaning for Kenya because of the Kenya's Vision 2030 Development Blueprint. The plan envisions that Kenyans will have access to adequate housing, energy, clean water, food, transportation, and social services, all important components of a green city. Ladies and gentlemen, to make our cities more resilient, we must always consider natural hazards and climate change risks when designing cities and urban infrastructure. However, upscaling green buildings and green cities on a sustainable basis requires buy-in, motivation, and support of public and private sector actors. Innovation, knowledge Partnerships and effective institutions will also be crucial in achieving these aspirations. The government has put in place the conditions for this transition to occur, some of which have been outlined in my earlier remarks and in the green economy strategy and implementation, and as well as the National Climate Change Action Plan of 2018-2022. In September this year, during the Heads of State Summit action in New York, His Excellency the President will co-lead the track on cities with the President of Turkey. We are already working in close collaboration with Turkey and partners to identify best practices and actions that can reduce emissions and increase resilience in cities. These actions will be taken forward to the summit for adoption by the UN Secretary General Assembly to increase the level of ambition for climate action in cities. This will require transformation in the way we plan and build our cities. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to take this opportunity to thank the private sector for providing inputs in the draft sustainable waste management policies. We are informed that we will be receiving additional comments on the two legislations. In 2018, we signed a framework of cooperation with the Kenya Association of Manufacturers to establish a take-back scheme to promote recycling, recovery, upcycling, treatment, and proper disposal of PET bottles. This framework of cooperation did not include the non-KEPSA or CAM members. We urge you all to bring your members on board for the success of this initiative and for a healthier and cleaner environment, which is enshrined in our Constitution in the Bill of Rights. We are aware that achieving this objective towards green growth, circular economy, and addressing the impacts of climate change will require enormous financial and technological support. We welcome our development partners and all stakeholders to work with us in realizing this objective. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude my remarks, I wish to reiterate the commitment of my ministry in promoting circular economy, green growth, and climate change actions. The government has provided several opportunities for investments in these projects, and our development partners have also supported the private sector. Please take one step towards a green initiative or recycling if you haven't. Start at least by planting a tree or saving energy or water, or train your children and grandchildren to do the same. And also, when holding such conferences, consider starting the ceremony by planting a tree or two. For the future belongs to our children, and we therefore ask you to change your story to help us succeed in achieving this aspiration.